Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite games. It's Root, specifically the Underworld expansion, the Underground Duchy. Today we're going to learn some tips and tactics on how to win with this new faction. What makes the Underground Duchy a fun faction to play is the use of the Burrow location. So as seen in the video, the Burrow is where you can place your soldiers, and then you can place these tunnel tokens actually onto the map, and it allows your mole soldiers to move between the Burrow and any of those tunnels. This is a fantastic way to get around the board very, very quickly. It's also a fantastic way to ambush your opponents. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick example of that. Here's a great way to make a lot of points really quickly with the Underground Duchy. What you're going to use is the dig action, which allows you to place one of these tunnel icons onto the map, and then it allows you to move 4 of your mole soldiers directly to that tunnel. So in this case, we have Marquis de Cat with 2 buildings actually out on the table. By using the dig action, I've now moved 4 of my soldiers directly onto the map as an ambush. I can then take a second action to battle at this location. And what's great about this is that if I wipe out these building tokens, that's going to give me 2 victory points on the victory tracker. So by using the mole's burrow and dig ability, you can ambush locations on the map and get a lot of points. So what you want to do though is you want to focus on locations that do have a lot of tokens that you can actually make points on. Now, if you're playing a multiplayer game of Root, that's pretty easy to find. Almost every turn you're going to be able to find a location with at least 1 or 2 tokens. So focus on that and focus on attacking those locations to get a lot of points. The Burrow mechanic is an absolutely fantastic asset for the Underground Duchy. I want you to think of it as not just a one-way tunnel that things move from the Burrow out onto the map, but things from the map can actually move back into the Burrow. So as an example, you can move a bunch of your troops from this tunneled location directly into the Burrow. And then if you have another action that turn, let's say you have one of your ministers that allows you a free move, you could then take these mole soldiers and put them at any other tunnel. So in this case, we're going to put them all the way across the lake at this location with the tunnel. What this does is it allows great versatility in moving around the map. Think of the Burrow as almost like a teleporter or a conduit that allows you to move your troops very quickly across the map. So you can respond to a lot of different situations, and you can attack your enemies very quickly by using the Burrow. So don't think of it as a one-way trip from the Burrow out to the board. You can go both ways. Something else that's great about it, your enemies cannot invade the Burrow. That's kind of your ground. That's your sacred ground. They can't invade it. So make use of the Burrow throughout the game. It's a fantastic resource for the Underground Duchy. Another tactic that you need to look at when you're using the Burrow and the sort of ambush and tunneling action is to look on your game mat. There are several citadels that are located on this board. The more citadels you actually put out into play onto the game board, if you notice, it's exposing more mole icons. What that allows you to do is during your birdsong phase, you get bonus warriors that are added directly to the Burrow. So if you want to be constantly attacking your opponent, I recommend putting citadels out, 1 or 2 very quickly at the beginning of the game. And what that allows you to do is to consistently create a ton of these mole warriors, which then you can use to ambush your opponent. To really get the Underground Duchy moving in a positive direction and get your point totals up very quickly, you're going to want to purchase these minister cards here. Once per turn, you can purchase a minister. When you purchase the minister, you can select which one you want to put in place. I'm going to put the first tier ministers out onto the table so you can see what happens. Then you take the corresponding crown and you put it on the one that you select. The other ones then go back onto the pile. Note that you get a victory point for actually bringing one of these into play. These are all squires. These are the basic types of ministers that you can have out. What makes these cards extremely effective is that they have these actions at the bottom. So the marshal, you can take a move. The captain, you can initiate a battle. And then the 4 mole helps you with building. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you extra actions that you can play on your turn. The Underground Duchy only has 2 actions per turn, but by putting these ministers into play, you get free additional actions. One of my favorite combos is to take both the captain and the marshal, put them into play very quickly at the beginning of the game, and then to play a lot of the citadels out, so your mole production is very, very high. You can then have a really aggressive army of moles to march across the map. And like I said before, you really want to be taking out enemy buildings to build those points up very, very quickly. As a protective strategy when you're playing the Underground Duchy, one thing I would highly recommend, any location that you have buildings out, you need to heavily defend that. If you lose those buildings, it causes your ministers to go back into the pile. And that's not the best thing. And you also lose that crown icon, or this crown token, for the remainder of the game. So be very, very conscious of protecting your buildings when they're actually out on the table. One way that you can do that is to build a lot of your buildings at the end of a tunnel and then keep some troops actually at that location to keep your buildings in play. If you can keep your buildings in play, you're going to do very, very well. This land in this location would be a very juicy target for an enemy. As an example, we have 3 tokens actually at that site. So an enemy would say, hey, that's a great place to attack. I can potentially get 3 different victory points off of that one location, and you really mess up the Underground Duchy's engine and ability to produce. Once you get your engine sort of building, you're going to have several of these tokens on the table, and this is where you can actually craft items in the game for the Underground Duchy. So you won't be able to craft right out of the gate, but maybe 2, 3, or 4 turns into the game, you can start crafting some simple items and gaining a few victory points here and there throughout the course of the game. But you always have to still protect the locations that are on the map. So as another sort of reinforcement, make sure that you always have a lot of troops to protect your buildings. It will also knock out your ability to craft if you lose your buildings as well. And it really diminishes the amount of options you have to score points with the Duchy. At the end of the game for the Underground Duchy, the vast majority of your mole soldiers are going to be on the map. And this is a fantastic opportunity to recruit some of your tier 3 ministers, your lords, so to speak. And a lot of these cards have some really awesome effects. So if you look at this one as an example, you get to score 1 victory point per market on the map. So in our example, if you have 2 markets out on the map, you can use this skill once per turn to gain 2 additional victory points. Now imagine if you had this lord out and then the Earl of Stone as well, and you could score 1 point per citadel on the map. So based on this configuration, you can score 3 different victory points every turn. And you'll be able to survive this because the vast majority of your moles are out on the table. So you can defend your citadels and you can defend your marketplace and you can just cash in and get these points. So once you have most of your moles on the table, transition to these higher lords in which you're getting victory points every turn. And also don't be shy to attack your enemy if they have 2 or more tokens at a corresponding location. You can use your moles to move across the map and rampage. To summarize, the Underground Duchy is a fantastic faction that was added to Root. What I really like about it is the ambush ability and the ability to create soldiers very, very quickly. It feels kind of strange that you're dumping all these moles out onto the table. They look kind of cute and fuzzy and furry, and you wouldn't expect them to be so aggressive. I think that's what I like about this faction so much. If you really want to play a nice, aggressive sort of warrior faction in Root, this is a fantastic option for you. You can surprise attack with large numbers of troops, and that's very, very satisfying. And then also bringing out some of the minister cards to bolster your combat strategies is really effective as well. So I highly recommend the Underground Duchy. It's actually one of my favorites in the game of Root. Hopefully you enjoyed this video today, and hopefully you learned some tips and tactics to help you win your next game of Root, especially when you're using the Underground Duchy. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and have a great day gaming.